Hi, welcome back to the SEO Bootcamp by Moz Academy. This is the on-page optimization course. And today we'll talk about how to prioritize site issues so you can see where this lesson falls in the on-page optimization course. Now, there are two ways to prioritize page optimization issues. One is broadly, which means site-wide, and the second is by specific page. And we're going to talk about both in this lesson. First, let's talk about prioritizing issues broadly or across your entire site. Now, this broad-based way to prioritize issues is part of a site audit. And we'll be touching on a few site audit elements, but for the full technical SEO audit, you'll want to check out the technical SEO seminar. In that course, we talk more about specific issues, duplicate content, canonical tags, redirects, etc. In this lesson, however, I'll show you how to find those page optimization issues across your entire site. Now, we're going to be using a site crawler in Moz. There are lots of site crawl tools out there, but today we're going to be using a Moz Pro campaign. Now, a Moz Pro campaign is defined as the SEO tracking for a website over time. So you would create a campaign for each website that you're working on. Within that campaign, Moz tracks how you rank for keywords, tracks your backlinks, and crawls your site once a week and reports optimization issues. Now, we'll be focusing on the site crawl portion of the Moz Pro campaign, which is located under that site crawl tab. Now, Moz has a crawler called RogerBot. It goes out and it crawls the web every day, looking at sites and their links. And it powers Link Explorer and it's updated daily. Now, it also crawls your site on a weekly basis. Once you create a campaign, Moz sends a crawler out to your site, and we look for issues related to your site broadly. So here's an example of RogerBot being blocked. So you can see what that looks like. It's part of this disallow file in this robots.txt, and you can see the name of Moz's crawler is RogerBot. Now, our crawlers look for issues and then create a site crawl report in the site crawl tab. In this report, you can look broadly across your entire site looking for issues, or you can look at specific pages. Now, let's talk about those different types of issues. Here on the overview, you can see some data as well as a couple of graphs. Let's zoom in on those graphs that we're seeing. On the right, this will show us the total number of pages crawled. Now, you'll see a dip after March 21st, which is kind of odd. When you see something like that, you'll notice the number of pages crawled went from almost 16,000 to about 12,000. So we want to ask ourselves, why are there suddenly almost 4,000 less pages? Now, is it something that we can account for? Is it something we did, such as no index an entire subfolder of pages? In that case, it's not too much to worry about. Or, if we can't account for it, is there something bad happening here? On the left, you'll see total issues. So you'll see the number of issues and what type they are. There's 5 categories of issues, which you can see listed across the bottom of the graph: critical, warnings, redirects, metadata, and content. Now, from this overview, you can scroll down, and now you can see issues by type. You see new issues up here at the top, and then all issues and what kind of issue type and how many there are of each issue type. And a lot of these are page optimization issues. So one thing I kind of want you to take a look at here is issues such as the URL too long. There's 7,283 URLs that are longer than what page optimization best practices recommend. There's almost 6,000 pages missing meta descriptions. There are titles that are too long for over 4,000 pages, missing canonical tags, missing H1s, temporary redirects, etc. Anytime you're seeing hundreds or thousands of issues all under one issue type, we want to see if we can find the underlying cause of that. Rather than going in and filling in meta descriptions in almost 6,000 pages, maybe there's one feature that our content management system is doing, or that we're not doing with our content management system correctly, that can fix all of that. For example, maybe there's 4,217 pages with titles that are too long because our content management system automatically adds our brand name to every title. And maybe it's just one quick fix to avoid that. Maybe our URL is too long because our content management system is creating these URLs automatically. And it's just one quick fix to keep that from happening in the future. So be thinking about that when you're seeing a whole lot of issues under one issue type. Now let's look at the different types of issues. Some of these issues are going to be more important to your development team, whereas other issues are probably going to be a bit more important to your content team. So we'll break that down. Here you can see 5 categories of issues. Now, we're not going to talk about each individual issue. Instead, we're just going to look at it broadly so I can show you what to look for. So let's start with that very first category. Those are critical crawler issues. These critical crawler issues are the most important out of all 5 categories of issues, no matter what type of site you have. They could potentially be very bad because these are things like server errors, broken pages, redirects to broken pages. These are issues that are keeping you from even getting indexed. When you open that category, it shows you those different types of critical crawler issues. Now again, we want to look for spikes. We want to look for patterns. You'll notice under critical crawler issues, I'm seeing some big spikes here under total issues and new issues. Seems that somewhere around July, we went from 20 issues to 120 issues in 1 week. Something caused it and something resolved it. And was it because of something we did? It's not coincidence that we all of a sudden had 120 404s. It went from 20 to 120. It was probably one underlying issue. In the case of 404s, if Google is spending a lot of time on broken links, and they don't necessarily like that, it takes up their resources and they know it's bad for user experience. So you want to resolve those 404s. Now, speaking of 404s, if you're not sure what that means when I say 404, 301, 200, this page will give you a list of HTTP status codes. So it'll tell you, what does 404 mean? Well, it's a broken link. Nobody's home. The site or the page couldn't be reached. 301 is a redirect, or in the 300s is a redirect. But you can see those common status code classes from this link. Let's go to that second category of issues, which are crawler warnings. Now, these might not be issues. We're just letting you know that we couldn't crawl these pages. And you might be blocking RogerBot on purpose. You'll remember we took a look at that robots.txt file and we saw that that particular site was blocking RogerBot. Maybe you're blocking RogerBot and Googlebot and other crawlers from a whole subfolder that you don't necessarily want to be ranked. In that case, a crawler warning is not an issue. It's just letting you know. However, if those blocks can't be accounted for, you might be blocking the crawlers from pages on accident. So it's always good to know where those crawler blockers are, whether you meant to do it on purpose or on accident. And again, it's good to look at trends. Look at those big spikes again. All of a sudden, around April, there was a huge spike in issues. So did we mean to block the crawler from one page, but we suddenly blocked the crawler from a whole subfolder, which was maybe like 300 pages? That's the kind of thing that you want to look for, is those spikes. We can go back to our robots.txt file and modify it and fix it so that we're only blocking the crawler from one page and not that whole subfolder, or whatever the issue may be. Always look for big spikes or big dips. There's trends there that you want to pay attention to. That way you can resolve them easily. Now, the next category of issues is redirect issues. Now, redirects can be problematic from both a user experience perspective and a domain authority perspective. Again, look for spikes or patterns. Some common redirect issues are temporary redirects, which are 302s. The 302 redirects don't help your domain authority, whereas 301s do. So anytime you have a 302 redirect in place, a lot of crawlers, including the Moz Pro campaign, will let you know. A redirect chain, for example, this is when, say, page A on your site redirects to page B redirects to C, and then C redirects to D, and D is your final destination. This is not an ideal situation from an SEO perspective or from a user experience perspective. From an SEO perspective, you're losing a little bit of page authority every time you have to make a stop. And from a user experience perspective, it could take a long time for that page D to load because of all those redirects. Ideally, all pages will redirect directly to your final destination. Again, look for spikes and patterns. That can help you make that quick fix rather than trying to resolve issues on 100 separate pages. Next is metadata issues. These are things like titles, meta descriptions, URLs being too long. These are good for your content team to know. And last are content issues, which are things like duplicate content, missing H1 tags, thin content, etc. Again, anytime you see spikes, this should give you a clue. It could mean that you don't have to go into each individual page and fix each issue. It could mean that there's one underlying issue or feature in your content management system that's causing that spike or dip, and that's what you need to fix. So that's the broad way of looking at issues. Now let's look at that second way, which is by specific page. So to look at individual pages issues, you'll go into that site crawl tab again, or whatever tool that you're using. Go to all crawled pages, and then you can sort all your pages by page authority, which is a great way to identify your most important pages, or you can filter by URL so that you can look at the issues for one specific page. This will show you every issue on that specific page. So for example, for this page, you can see there's 2 issues down there at the bottom affecting this page, a redirect chain and a duplicate title. If your ranking suddenly fell for a specific page, you may want to check the issues associated with that page first. That could be one reason. You can also go in and resolve any issues on your most important pages. You may not necessarily want to spend your time entering meta descriptions on low traffic, low volume pages. You may instead want to focus on just fixing all the issues on, say, your top 10 or your top 20 pages. Now, if you don't have Moz, check out Screaming Frog. It's another site crawler that will report issues. Screaming Frog is free to download, and it will crawl up to 500 URLs on your site for free. You can pay for additional access if your site is larger than 500 URLs. And it will give you a report in a spreadsheet format. Now, there's lots of tutorials out there about Screaming Frog because this is a very popular tool that's great to use. Here's one example of a tutorial on YouTube. And this is another great tool for identifying issues both across your site broadly and specific page issues. So that's how you prioritize, both broadly and by specific page. Thank you.